Good evening, our viewers, and welcome to another episode of your daily show, Achievements. I'm your host, Abdulatif Lanizi, and here with me, my colleague, Fatma Al Hajri. Good evening, Fatma.
Good evening, Abdulatif, and good evening, dear viewers. This is your show, Achievements, where we talk about different topics with different guests. Stay tuned after this report.
A successful identity is built on things a person has done. Your most important accomplishments are a very important way for you to measure your success. Colleagues, competitors, and the general public can look at a person's achievements to figure out how successful they are. Most of the time, putting in a lot of work pays off. Most people think a successful life is one of a lot of things to be proud of. When you finish a task, you win over problems or other people. Achieve means to work together to reach a hard and challenging goal. Everyone should be ready to help out and work together if they need to. There are many ways to reach your goal, but in the end, it's up to you to decide how it will pay out in your life. In their careers, some people want to get rich and will be well known. Some people think that even small victories are reasons to have a party. We're all different, so we all have our own thoughts on everything. In the end, though, everyone wants to be happy, and everything you do in life will help you to get closer to that ultimate goal.
Welcome back, our dear viewers. Tonight we're having with us a special guest who started developing and connecting the dots and everything connected to the cars, and especially car engines. He is a mechanical engineer and has been working in cars since 2014. Please welcome with us Mr. Badr Al-Asaimi. Welcome, Badr, to our show Achievements.
Thank you for having me here.
It's our pleasure.
It's great to be here in this amazing and wonderful show.
Thank you for that, and of course it's our pleasure to have you here with us. Mr. Badr, can you tell us how did you start on cars from the first place and your early steps on this field?
Sure. I assume everyone loves cars and engines or football, sports. It started a long time ago, maybe in school time, and then it escalated when I used to study in the United States. And at that time also I had a sport car, and since the labor charges are expensive, so we started working on it ourselves. Me and also my roommates and my other friends, until we graduated, and I built a good knowledge, especially with shops there in the United States. And after that, we came back to Kuwait, and I had few cars to work on. I reached a limit that I cannot work in my house, even though I used to have small customers and friends of my friends to add more either upgrades or basic maintenance or services. And then it escalated to have my own business as well.
So from the beginning, you transformed this information from the US when you started to gain the knowledge from there, and you brought it here.
Yes.
Which
exactly.
is the magical thing, because we need this experience here in Kuwait.
I'm really interested. In the beginning, you mentioned that in the start, you actually got into it in high school and school.
True.
So can you tell us more about that? Like, what made you get more into engines and car engines? Like, even a lot of, I think, high schoolers and a lot of students, sometimes there's a lot of different interests for them, sports, and for you it was cars and engines.
Right.
So can you tell us how you got into that?
We used to have scooters or motorcycles, or back in the days the GoPed, you know, the one that you stand on.
Yes.
And it's very basic and very simple. We charge spark plugs and sometimes wiring, and we do the premix for the fuel and oil for that. My dad found that I'm very much interested, and then he made me join the science club before in Junub al-Sirra. After that, I bought an RC car remote control, a powered engine, gasoline engine, and then started dismantling and assembling and knowing all the parts like suspensions, gearbox, engine, dismantling, connecting rods, shafts, other parts inside the engine with the small RC car.
So
and then
I think
it started from there, right?
I think it's
Yeah.
very interesting that you disassembled it all and then remade it again.
Right.
So was it hard for you to actually like disassemble it all and like from scratch
Yes,
just build it again?
Yeah, it was actually hard because I had no idea how to get the actual clearances and tolerances for a very small, tiny, like you're talking about this much connecting rod or very small pistons.
Yeah, because the RC cars is really small.
Yes, yes. We had an instructor there, and he used to help us to develop and try to dismantle and check exactly the clearances and how to put it back together. And it just grew from there, from an RC cars to an airplane. Also, I used to have like 6 airplanes, also gas powered, and it just grew up from there.
The airplane, the small one that we can see that sometimes there are competitions here in Qatar. The airplanes that it's small jet.
You
worked
It's
on.
a fuel jet,
yeah.
right?
I didn't at that time. I didn't have time to go all the way to the fuel jet, but I had the normal top wing and bottom wing.
So
planes.
you switched from that field into cars.
Right.
But speaking of cars and computers, do you think that's really hard?
Cars and computers are hard. The only thing that really pushed me to go to airplanes is the electronics. And then I gained some of the knowledge, then I transferred it back to a real car when I was in the United States, because some cars, in order for you to have more power, you need to control certain parameters. And for the stock ECU, the engine computer management system, it's very limited, especially in having a certain access to it. So we try to have, they call it a piggyback. And then also we have a standalone where you remove the stock ECU and then fix an aftermarket one where you can have endless options and
so
control.
Yeah, at the first when there is a limit from the engine that you can gain from the company at the car,
right,
you try to break it and put an aftermarket one so you can have
we don't want to say break it, let's call it enhancing it.
Enhancing, yeah.
And so I think there is also an important point you mentioned about the airplanes, which is electronic, which was easier. So what you're doing now is so much harder, of course.
Right.
But why didn't you choose something easier? Why did you go for the hard things like the car engines?
It's more challenging environment in terms of computer, circuit board. Also, we have a very new, especially with the new technological advancement, the algorithm and how you set up like a triggering system, or you can set up a certain parameters for safety, or you can increase a certain sensors. We call it like a view. Normal cars, they have a very controlled, limited views in terms of getting reading and parameters, and the aftermarket cars, it needs a bigger view for it. Like
so how do you make that happen?
For example, if we have a car that, let's say it's a turbocharged, it's an easy example. If you have a turbocharged engine, which we call it a force induction, let's say a stock car comes from the manufacturer, let's say 300 horsepower, and you want to increase it maybe 100 wheel horsepower. That's a lot for a stock engine. You need to have a certain computer to give it that information that, hey, if it's going more than this limit, it's okay. We already have another limit to it as a safety. So that's how we control it, and we make it expand and increase that horsepower.
That's really special way to do it.
Yeah.
It is, it is. Can I do that to my car?
Sure.
Okay, that's
but
good.
I mean, you are going to take a very long time to increase it. It depends on the model and the manufacturer.
Yeah. Of course, if it was like old, it will be easier, but the new, it's a little bit harder. I think this way,
the
right?
newer one, it's a little bit harder. The old ones, if you want to go back to the carburetor, it's more straightforward. You get the air-fuel ratio, and then you set it up with the jettings, and then
it's not as complex.
It's not very complex, but you need to buy the exact parts and piece to it.
Of course.
The new computer for cars, it's not limiting, but it's also limiting. keep in mind that engine is all metal, and each of this of the metal itself, it has a certain speed, certain diameter, certain temperature, certain material to it. So you need to take in consideration all of this. You cannot rev it higher than its rated speed. You cannot force more air and more fuel into it, otherwise it will damage it.
Which makes it also more clear. Thank you, and thank you for
I
explaining
think
that.
that's very important, that there's
Yeah.
a lot of more
It is.
factors when it comes to the engine.
Yes.
Even if you want to increase the horsepower, there's a lot of things to look into.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So can you tell us about when was the first time that you worked on a real car? Tell us the experience.
Ooh, I have a very long story. I used to have a Volkswagen Beetle, and that's where the first car that didn't have electronics into it, carburetor. Then I moved to Japanese cars, which many people here love and like. I used to have an RX-7 in the United States, so I imported with me to Kuwait, and the RX-7 has an endless options. I mean, it's costly, but also it has an endless option in terms of engine parts, accessories, electronics. Not to forget also, when you increase the power, you need also to increase the stopping capacity of the vehicle.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
easy
so there's
to
balance.
Yeah, it's easy to pick up and go, but will it stop at that certain distance? That also needs to be in consideration.
Of course, and I have a question when it comes to the newest ways to check for a car computer. What are the newest ways? Because I know there's like a specific kind of technology when
Right.
you have to check on the car. So can you tell us about that?
Most of cars, I would say from 1996 and newer, it has the standard OBD protocols and connections. There are many aftermarket computers, and nowadays you can have a portable with a Bluetooth OBD connector, and you connect it and you can have your phone and you can scan it with that.
You can
With
scan
my
it with your
phone?
phone.
Yes, yes.
Can I
That's
do that?
interesting.
Yeah.
So it shows every like mechanical issue,
Let's
everything.
call it. It has a generic coding, which it will only read a specific input and outputs that the computer allow you to do it. There are other computers, let's say the manufacturer or the OEM, which it has more access for the OEM to diagnose even further to it. And of course, as I said earlier, there are an aftermarket ECU computers, which you can do anything, whatever you want.
So you just mentioned about the computer and that I can do it with my phone, but can I read it, or just it needs an expert to read the system information from the car?
It's very simple. With the new OBD protocol, it will give you the codes, let's say the trouble code, and also it will have a brief description of that trouble code. Nowadays you can Google any trouble code and it will give you like all 4 or 5 options how to diagnose and also how
Fix the issue.
to resolve it as well.
So can you tell us, getting a little bit personal, can you tell us about how is the family and friends support on your life?
Of course, family is a big help. As I said, I started in my house. I have like a small workshop. It seems like more cars, more oil, more grease. So I had to move out, not evicted, but I had to move out.
Just move the workshop.
Yeah, exactly,
Yes.
just to move the workshop. I started it, me and my brother in my house, and then we went to a shop. After that, we try to minimize the waste and the usage of the waste as well. So we start to have a smaller shop that it can accommodate only our cars.
Of course, I think that's very interesting to actually have this kind of workshop with your sibling, to have this
Right.
kind of connection. Even at work, you even enjoy it, you know,
True.
family time and even work, you know.
Yes, yes.
Of course, we still have a lot more questions for you, Badr, but
Definitely.
we will take a short break, dear viewers, and we'll be right back.
Badr Al-Asami. Badr is a mechanical engineer who has graduated from the University of South Florida in the United States of America. He has been working in the garage field since 2014. He also has experience in the maintenance and development in the field of engines. In addition, Badr is a certified car computer programmer. He has earned his certification of completion of all the requirements for the curriculum of the course EFI 101. Moreover, Badr has also earned a certificate of completion to be fully recognized as an AEM factory trainer for Infinity EMS and Infinity Tuner software. Badr has certainly worked harder in order to reach this level of professionalism. It is definitely something we are proud of. Hence, Badr has also earned the certification in completing the seminar called Learn to Tune High Performance EFI Engines.
So now I'm in one of the customer's vehicle on a dynamometer. The dynamometer is a tool we normally use to measure the horsepower and torque, as well as it will give us a certain reading for the air-fuel ratio. Based on the certain readings, then we interpolate the adjustment on the computer ECU to increase and enhance the performance of the vehicle.
Badr is a professional in anything related to cars. He enjoys most of his time working to improve a certain car. For instance, checking the car's engine and preparing it for driving. He has worked with many different teams from all over the world in order to reach his goal. He also able to check the speed of different cars and make sure they are safe to drive. He has knowledge in everything that involves the car's engine and the car's maintenance requirements. Badr spends most of his time in the garage dealing with different cars. He also advises drivers of when is the right time to change the car's oil, gear, and maintenance in general. Badr has learned the different types of car clutches, therefore he is a professional in differentiating each clutch in every car. Moreover, he has studied the horsepower of each car. For instance, he is able to know each car and the specific speed of it. He is also able to manage the speed of the car. Badr is an expert in cars and their spare parts. He does it out of passion because at the end he's doing what he loves.
Now we are going to do a dyno run and to see how much horsepower with the air-fuel ratio and torque this car can make.
Welcome back, our dear viewers. We're back with our guest Badr. Of course, from the video, I noticed that did you open your own garage, your own business?
Yes. As I said, I moved to a small workshop out of my house, and then it escalated to a business.
So how is it going so far?
It's good. It's actually a very challenging environment. As I was explaining earlier, that I try to pass the knowledge to the customers. And I used to give courses and training for some guests if they need, just to make them more knowledgeable on their cars. They don't have to be knowledgeable in programming or tuning or maintaining their cars.
Just the basic things.
Exactly. There are, as you asked earlier about the coding and the protocol of the diagnosed. It's very simple, but you need to understand what could cause it. There are other parameters that could lead to a certain code. So I try to enlighten them.
I think that's very important. I think a lot of customers usually they don't know what's wrong with their car or what really caused it. So for you to actually take the time to explain that to them is very important.
Yeah.
Which also we need it, and thank you for that. Because a lot of people who works on the garage, they don't give the customer all of the information, just the way to let the customer ignore it, and whenever they need something, they come back for them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so doing that means you are an honest person, and thank you for that.
No problem.
So, in speaking of the garage, and you're working on it, do you still get your hands dirty, or you just work and supervise?
Every day.
You work with them?
Every day, yes. I try to be there as much as possible. even though I have a day job, and as soon as I finish from my day job, I just relax for a few hours and then go to my garage. I try not to stay a very long time to limit myself, but sometimes I get carry on with certain projects and certain troubleshooting some customers' vehicles.
So the car on the screen right now, it's actually your project, right?
This is one of the cars that we put on the dyno to see how it's responding in the horsepower wise.
You have that project. You have actually, you just told it that you have another car
Yes,
you brought from the US.
Yes, the one that I brought from the US. Yes, it's a Mazda RX-7, and
Oh,
I'm trying to see what's the limit it can make. I think the maximum now I hit about 820 wheel horsepower, and I'm working on some advancement and improvement in the car. I have a target of 1,000 horsepower. It's very much close there, but you know, some limitation in fuel delivery system, it's causing that issue, and I don't want to keep on blowing the engine and damaging it for a very simple thing.
why did you choose the Mazda RX-7? Do you like the GDM cars?
Between my friends, and very much known for having a big cars like, you know, S-Class or even a Lincoln or a Lexus. So I moved to a sport car. I want to have something sport, 2 doors, manual transmission, unique,
And powerful.
powerful,
It is powerful.
and costly also.
Yeah.
That will burn a big hole in the pocket. Trust me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, my dad didn't know that I'm gonna get a rotary engine, because rotary doesn't have same as the traditional cars like pistons, connecting rod, valves. It doesn't have only crank, and they call it like a Doritos. It's like a triangle.
Yeah, it's triangle one.
Yes, yes. I like it. It sounds different. It drives different. It feels different. It's very tiny, and it fits me good. So I like it. It's nice.
I can tell you're very passionate about what you do. So do you think that you chose the major as, of course, an engineer, car engineer, to know more about like mechanical engineer and these kind of stuff, so you can open your garage? Was that like the whole idea in the beginning?
I wasn't thinking about opening a garage at that time, but in my high school I had two goals: to be a mechanical engineer and to buy a Porsche. And alhamdulillah, I set these 2 goals and I got them, alhamdulillah.
You bought the Porsche.
Yes.
Okay.
But I sold it.
Congratulations. Oh, you sold it.
Why
Yes.
did you sell it?
I like the small cars. It's more controlling, and it's more enjoyable for me. And the more I get promoted in my day job, so I have less time to
focus on the car.
focus on
Yeah.
the cars.
Of course. I think sometimes you need to be more practical when it comes to the car, especially
True.
here in Kuwait.
True.
So can you tell us about the difficulties that you had on your way?
Oh, where you want me to start? As I said, I moved to a small workshop, and then I learned the hard way that I need certain permission to have that workshop. So it escalated so quick within less than a year, and then I got my permits and also the contracts and other advertisement, and as well as the logo. Also, the logo has a story, because I graduated from Florida. I used to study in Orlando, then I moved to Tampa. So that road connects from Orlando to Tampa. It's called International Highway I-4. So that's why even our logo, it has that for I-4.
Of course, it has a story, it has a
Right.
connection, it has a
Right.
background. And I think, especially as you mentioned earlier, sometimes it can be expensive, even working in this kind of field,
Right.
owning a garage, a workshop, it can be expensive. So can you tell us more about that?
In terms of cost and financial, yes. First of all, you need to know exactly what your limit is. Second thing, you need to know what are the space that you require to have the vehicles to work on. At the beginning, I used to work only for my cars, my brothers, and also my cousins and my friends. And then within less than 2-3 years, we start having customers and friend of a friend and a friend of a friend of a friend. and it just escalated. And then after 4 or 5 years, we moved to even a bigger shop. I want to have more control in terms of me being located in a certain place. I don't have to go and get, like say, dynamometer, renting it from other people. So, alhamdulillah, yani, I reached that target, and I moved to a bigger place, and I got my own dyno, and then also my own 2 jacks, and I have a good also assistants that I trained from the beginning, and now they just set certain things during the day, and then at night, if there are any difficulties, I just come and have a check.
I think that's great to have your own workshop the way that you want it, and to actually have the space to move around, to do all the things that you need to work on. Especially you mentioned that before you used to rent them, now you own them.
True.
And even you spend the time with the rest of the team, you know, working on objects, working on cars, modifying them, and especially as you mentioned, sometimes you know the team needs to take a break,
Right.
so you take over from there. I think it's very important to have this kind of connection. And
good.
yes, also earlier when you were talking about the project and how you came up with the idea of the name, you mentioned that you studied in the States. So this is very interesting. Did you actually try to work with cars when you were in the States as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It wasn't only me, and I would say also my other friends who are also studying and engineering in the States. I used to have an RX-7, and my other friend, he used to have a Nissan Silvia, and my other friend used to have the old Supra. So we were like all 3 with each other, and we used to help each other. We used to rebuild an engine in a weekend.
So this
Saturday,
is how you
Sunday.
spend your weekends. I think
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
very nice.
Yeah, Thursday night or Thursday evening, we just bring the car and then park it, and then hey, we
Just
have
open the hood and just like
open the
work on
hood,
the car.
take the engine out, put it inside the apartment, and then dismantle it. We put like a plastic rug so it doesn't
Like the
spill
oils, of
oil.
course.
Yeah, and
It's
then
fun time.
Yeah,
It's not tiring, right?
Yeah, 48, 72 hours without sleep. It's not bad.
Without sleep.
Without sleep, because you need to go back to school on Monday. So we have to assemble the engine,
We have to finish it really
put it back
fast.
together, make sure everything is within tolerance and spec, and then you fix it in the engine bay, and then Sunday night you crank it and everything is normal, you normalize, and then Monday you just go back
So
to...
why you did it on the first place?
One of the situations, we tried to have more power. At that time we weren't knowledgeable in terms of this car needs to have a better enhancement. So I mean, normally you turn up the boost and then boom, without setting the right fuel and ignition into it. That's when it all started to remove the engine in the apartment.
Okay, so did Badr achieve his goal yet?
I would say yes, alhamdulillah. I've achieved most of what I have looking for. And as I said, you know, once you meet one achievement, you look into another achievement, and then you just continue to that.
So what's your next step?
That's a good question. I'm planning on moving to a bigger shop and having me, instead of being a technician, moving to a more managerial section, and I want to focus on just doing the programming and computer, and have other section of the mechanical to be taken care of.
So it'll be less handwork for you and more on the technical side, which can really help a lot, especially during the day. If you
Right.
have work, you have
Right.
more time to do other things.
Right, right. And also there is also something called this remote tuning, where you can program cars that are not maybe in Kuwait.
How do you do that?
With certain computers, you can connect online and you share the screen with them, and there is a programs where you can communicate with remote PCs, and you can enter their own
Car system.
and you download the parameters you want to check and see, and then if they have a dynamometer they can do it, and if they don't, there are other ways that, you know, they can drive around and then just collect some data, and then I do the analysis here and then reprogram the software and then send them like a patch, and then they download it, and then it just repeats itself.
So, Badr, as we see every day, there are new technology on the field of cars.
Right.
Are you planning to expand your knowledge on the fields of cars?
Yes, as I said earlier, there are certain models that customers like, and there are some models they are more advanced. So depending on what type of car you want to get into, and then from there you have to seek out other computers and advancement of collecting certain tools and then reuse them for that vehicle.
What about the near future? Where do you see yourself?
Hopefully, I would say near future I'll be having a bigger shop, as I said, and also I want to add more parts and retails and getting into more fabrication and customization of certain parts.
Do you think you want to expand your team as well?
Definitely. As I said, normally I don't have enough time to do it myself, so I have the idea of what I need to achieve. So I try to either put it on a sketch or get it on a 3D program, or sometimes we use a cardboard to it, and then from there I just give it to a fabricator or a welder, and then he just do a rough
sketch about the
sketch, or even
idea.
he can tack weld it, and then if it's good, then we do it.
Well, that's amazing. And it was really a pleasure to have you here with us and our show Achievement. We really learned a lot from you. Thank you so much for being here with us.
You're welcome, anytime.
Really, thank you, and thank you for being here with us,
Thank you very much.
thank you for all the information that you gave us.
Definitely.
And of course, our dear viewers, we reached our time. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, it's really a pleasure to be a co-host with you, Fatma.
Thank you, Abdul Latif, and dear viewers, as my co-host just mentioned, we have reached the end of our time for this evening. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.